Pulp MX Network production.
EVS Sports brings you a cheeky Brit and an American YouTube racing sensation weekly on the LVK More Than Moto podcast. Here's your hosts, Phillips and Kellen Brauer.
Welcome back, everybody, to the EVS Sports LVK More Than Moto podcast. I am Kellen Brauer from MotoOnline.com. Phillips from Vital MX, not in studio this week. Another remote show for us. Lewis, you have left us and the great state of California to go elsewhere, sir.
I'm at Max Anstey's house again at the moment. Big weekend coming up, so I'm just here to keep an eye on progress, make sure that everything is ticking in the way that it should be. And overseeing, really. Managerial role, you could say.
Are you trying to take care of everything around the house for him so he doesn't have to? It's all focus ahead on Southwick then?
I'm a soundboard, you could say. Just here to, answer questions, quell any doubts, take care of the situation. Like Mother Teresa.
Lovely. You had a long drive across the country. How was that driving? You've never driven more than a few hours in the USA or something like that, right? So that was quite an experience.
It wasn't as good as I expected.
No, very barren land. Yeah,
I expected to see what are the heads in the mountain called?
Mount Rushmore.
That's it. I literally have been trying to remember that for days. Yeah, expected to maybe come across that. Nope. Realistically, I saw Houston, and that was it.
That's the only major city you went through?
Already last year, so not exactly thrilled with that.
Well, I'm glad that you got to experience all of USA in its glory, at least the south side of the USA, and now you get to experience the Florida heat.
Well, I'm in Georgia at the moment, but it's very hot. Oh my, I'm heat stroke. Honestly, if the rest of the nationals are going to be like this, I'm screwed.
Yeah, it's going to be a long summer. Going to be a long summer for Lewis.
My eulogy now.
All right, I'm on it. Gonna go right to the keyboard warrior and begin that. All right, so we didn't have a show between High Point and Thunder Valley, so we're kind of catching up a little bit this week, but there's actually some relevant news coming up this weekend for Southwick. Obviously, we already talked about Anstey last week, but we have a couple other kind of key moves to talk about today, so let's go ahead and get into our show. Before we do, big shout out to EVS Sports. Experience the pinnacle of knee protection and injury prevention with the EVS Web Eclipse knee brace. For over 39 years, EVS has relentlessly honed their engineering expertise, consistently delivering award-winning knee braces. This legacy of excellence is embedded in every facet of the new Web Eclipse, which represents the culmination of their tireless dedication to innovation and rider safety. Use code LVK30 to save 30% off today. Also want to thank Namura, the leading provider of engine components for motocross, ATV, UTV, and personal watercraft for over 2 decades. Namura has been the preferred choice for premium and dependable engine components for more than 20 years. Whether you're restoring your vintage bike, rebuilding your four-wheeler, or upgrading your new 450 race motor, Namura has you covered. Our extensive line of cast and forged pistons, connecting rods, gasket kits, engine valves, and soon cylinder kits that enhance your engine's performance. Keep an eye out for our new and innovative products in 2024 and beyond. Stay up to date by following us on Instagram at Namura_technologies. And also a shout out to Race Tech. We're going to have Race Tech non-moto topics today, but not fan topics. For 40 years, Race Tech has been supplying the motorcycle industry with high-quality suspension components made right here in the USA. For modern and vintage, Race Tech is your go-to source for suspension performance. All right, let's get into our show. Leading off today, Lewis, a little bit of breaking news. I mean, it wasn't much of breaking news because we kind of heard some rumblings about this through the woodwork, but Colt Nichols and Beta have officially agreed to mutually part ways, as they put it. First off, I guess what we review about this is it's more or less just a failure of both sides, that it didn't work out, or do you have one way that you're leaning on this was worse for the other?
No, I believe that you are accurate. It is not great for either side. Not a big surprise because A, there were rumblings, and B, I think it was clear to the naked eye that this wasn't going well. I do believe or know that Colt was in a deep, dark place towards the end of Supercross. So it's probably for the best for him that he got out, because sometimes certain situations don't work for certain riders. There's no point beating your head against the wall and trying to make a square peg fit in a square peg fit in a round hole. You may as well just go on elsewhere. So I do believe that, similar to what Colt said in his Instagram post, this is for the best for his well-being, But he's leaving money on the table. He's leaving the security of a 2-year contract on the table. And on Beta's side, they've now got to find a rider. And honestly, initial feeling is that I do not see them finding a rider of the caliber of Colt Nichols.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing we need to talk about with this is obviously when Colt came back from the shoulder issue halfway through Supercross, it wasn't good, like you said. He missed a couple of main events. He was off the pace in a lot of mains, and it started to turn around towards the end as he adapted to that bike. But what probably made it worse for him is that Benny Bloss found a way to make that bike work eventually. It was not necessarily great at the beginning of the year, but then Bloss started getting a couple top 10s before he got hurt right before the season's end. So aesthetically, if you're an outside looking in at this team right now and you're thinking about joining them as a rider to replace Colt Nichols, who's leaving that spot, do you look at it from the side of, well, Benny Bloss made that bike work, so certainly there is potential in it, or are you more skeptical because Colt Nichols did not have a good time there?
Similar to what you said, if you want to look at it from the naked eye and be particularly observant, you could argue from a neutral standpoint that Benny struggled a lot in the first half of the season, certainly the first quarter, and then figured it out. Colt never got to the second half of his season. So maybe, if you want to be really cut and dry with the facts, had Colt done the whole season, he would have also made a similar breakthrough to Benny.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair to say.
Yeah, and I said that from a neutral standpoint, but I guess actually that is more, well, that's kind of in defense of Beta and Colt, because it's saying that if this had more time to marinate, maybe both sides would have prospered. But ultimately, yeah, what Colt did, and actually I would love to look into this now, if you line up Colt's results versus Benny's results through the first 8 races or whatever it was, I would bet they're more comparable. And we don't have data from Colt to compare to the second half of Benny's season.
Right. Well, like I said, the eye test at least appeared that Nichols was figuring it out towards the end of Supercross. What that is, I don't know. It could just be simply that the last few rounds were more hard-packed and dry, and obviously where they train on that Beta was Central California, so it's more close to what they train and test on that machine. But the flip side of it is Bloss started figuring out the bike when the conditions were maybe the worst. He had great rides at Daytona, and I think Birmingham was one that he had a good ride at as well. So it seems to me that the window that bike possesses is a wild range in nature, and you can maybe find a way to make it work in both. But whatever it is, obviously Nichols never quite figured it out in either discipline, and it led to this breakup. Given how things went towards the end of Supercross, though, Lewis, are you a bit surprised that, given that he had started to maybe turn the page a little bit with it, that he didn't stick to the program, didn't stay around to see how it would go in year 2?
No, because I believe that once you have made your mind up mentally on a situation, it's hard to dig yourself out and view it differently. Just another little note that I just came up with. Maybe this is prevalent in this situation. Benny essentially upgraded with Beta because he was on a privateer team, had limited resources, so maybe he saw the situation as glass half full, which helped him. Whereas for Colt, with what he'd done recently with HRC, with Star, although it's a factory program, it was arguably a step down for him. So different perspective, glass half empty. I could see it working like that, where they're both looking at the same thing from different viewpoints because of their recent history, and thus having completely different experiences, despite the fact that actually at its core, they are the same, or one in the same at least.
Right. Well, I think, I believe I heard Steve say this, and maybe you've also said this before on a podcast, but thinking of Triumph, and they signed Swoll and Savacci this year, and obviously Evan Ferry before that breakup happened. And I think I remember Steve, or maybe it was you, saying that those are great riders for Triumph to sign because the upside can be great, but the downside is if it doesn't go well, it doesn't necessarily look like, it doesn't look bad on Triumph necessarily, because you could come up with reasons why if Swoll's not performing, there could be ulterior reasons than the machine. And if Savacci coming back to a 250 for the first time doesn't do what he's able to do, again, like them doing well is great, and them not doing well doesn't necessarily look bad for the team. So like you said, Colt coming from a factory Honda and then struggling to figure out this bike, that's probably the thing that makes that whole thing look the worst, right? Because he came from the best equipment and came to this team and it didn't work out.
Yeah. Essentially, when Beta signed Colt, they were really sticking their neck on the line and exposing themselves, because with a rider like that, there's nowhere to hide. There really isn't. So I remember feeling like that when the deal was announced, that it was ballsy for a first-year project. And ultimately, it hasn't worked out, but I do not believe that this looks that bad on Beta. I really don't. Because we kind of know where Beta is at from GPs. So, yeah, I think that also softens the blow and provides more context on what the situation is there.
Yeah. Last thing we'll talk about, because timer's about to expire here. Colt Nichols moving forward, we believe, is already probably going to be in a position to get back to racing sooner rather than later with another program.
Steve tweeted it. You can say it.
So there you go. We believe Colt's going to HEP for the rest of outdoors, and that'll start soon enough. But anyway, moving forward for Colt, is this going to be the right move for his career to get out of this guaranteed money and try to build with this program and go find something that he could maybe overperform on again?
Yes, because realistically, if you tell me Colt is going to be on HEP in Supercross specifically, I do find myself being full of hope of what he can do, and I find myself being excited about Colt's prospects again. Which, if I feel like that, I would imagine he feels like that 10 times over, which then will translate to general happiness, going to work every day, which will result in better riding and generally further his career. So it's a domino effect. It's a domino effect, and the first domino is the most important to get right. And in this situation, I believe he's done something that helps that.
Yeah, and another thing that probably helps it too is, we thought Beta may end up doing a few nationals. Now we think Colt is probably going to do the last half-ish of nationals, and because of that, he'll probably make it into SMX, which he is currently not qualified for at the moment. So that could be a little bit of a carrot dangled in front of him to do this and maybe make a little bit more money, because he made a lot of money last year in SMX. So, and
it gives him WSX opportunities. So there are a lot of positives and few cons, aside from the fact that I would imagine base salary, he has walked away from a lot of money compared to what he would get at HEP if that is his next team. But again, like you said, he can make that up in SMX money and WSX money and all of that good stuff.
Exactly. So world of opportunities have been opened by leaving Beta. Let's get in our second topic of the day. This one has been kind of a hotly contested topic over the last few years, especially with the amount of money that people have been saying they've been spending to get teams to the nations, particularly the USA. This is about the time where we're starting to think of Motocross of Nations teams. I know that the German team has already kind of like given their short list of riders that most likely will go for the team this year at Matterley Basin, and then a handful of other programs are already starting to try to figure it out. USA will probably be announced towards the end of nationals, for example. And so we wanted to talk about this today. Would it be a good idea moving forward for nations if you just right now said every other year from this point onward is what nations is going to be? We're not going every year. We're going to split it up. It's going to be 5 per decade so that we give ample opportunity for programs like the AMA and others, the Canadian stuff, to build up enough funds over a 2-year period of time to be able to send the A team every time. So what do you say about that, Lewis?
Honestly, I understand it from a federation perspective, from a financial perspective of the countries. Obviously, for in front, it benefits them to run it every year. But this is where I find myself entering my old man phase, because this is where I enter my phase of, no, I like tradition, and this is how it's always been, so keep it this way, and I would really struggle to get used to change. In my mind, if you were to make this change, it's almost similar to going to electric bikes. Like, I can't I like it how it is. I can't handle the change, even though I can see the benefits, which you could argue is also the same with electric bikes. But I like this. I like it every year. That's what I'm used to. Don't rock my boat, and keep it that way, please, and thank you.
I agree with you. I hate changing tradition, and I feel the exact same way about it. And specifically speaking from the USA side standpoint, which seems to be the hot button topic of trying to get the USA's A team to the nations every single year, I can 1000% see a situation where, in this example, we go to an every other year situation for the nations, and we get to that off year. Maybe it's like the third year of doing it. We had a nations, we didn't. We had another one, so now we're on the off year. And USA's A team is ready to go. They're not in contract windows. You know, whatever the A team is at that point in time, they have multi-year deals. They're on teams that want to support the nations. And guess what? There's no nations this year, so no point in sending anybody because there's nothing to do. And then we get to the next year after that, and that entire A team is suddenly in a contract year, and they're going to a new team, and they got to test and all this stuff like that. So the A team was available one year, and suddenly the next year they're not. So to me, it doesn't matter at that point, because then we've lost the ability to see the best riders on the track one year and had B team again go another year for a completely different reason that has nothing to do with funding. It's literally just about contract situations.
Yeah, and also on the same note, injuries. In its current format, Hurlings has only raced for nations in 11, 12, 16, 17,
16, 17, yeah.
18, 19, and then not since 19. So already Hurlings has missed 50% of the nations, is that? And that's with it running every year. So if you add this format to a rider like Hurlings' career, we would only see Hurlings at the nations like twice throughout his entire career, which is equally as sad as what you just mentioned.
Right.
So, but to reiterate what I said at the beginning, I do understand why the federations would benefit from this. I do. But also, this would never happen because in front are inundated with requests to run the nations. A lot of countries are eager to get it on their soil. In front make a shit ton of money from it. So for them, they would essentially be shooting themselves in the foot by doing this. So it will never happen. It's just hypothetical. But as it does every year, it's kind of reared its head again on social media, hence us talking about it.
Yeah. Let me ask you from the rider's perspective, because like you said, the federations would benefit, in front would not. So it's a kind of a flip-flop at that point. So then we get back to the rider's situation, which, as I mentioned, contract windows often affect that. Do you think, though, if it's every other year, which means that the ability over a rider's career to even go in the first place becomes half of the ability, like it's limited to only half the times they could go, that it would up the like need or the want for them to go when they are presented the ability to go? Like they would break their back in that sense to go if they are selected, instead of saying, nah, because I could be on next year. Well, there's not a next year. You know what I mean?
Well, my initial thought was yes. And then in crept a secondary thought of no, because I believe the nations would then slowly start to carry even less importance. Because we're not even doing this every year. We didn't do it last year. Why not? Let's just not do it this year as well. You know, I think that already we are in a deep, dark hole with battling for the nation's relevance in the current landscape. And I think that by moving it to every other year, you're only hurting that, because I do think then it would become more forgettable. It wouldn't carry as much prestige for the riders because they would almost forget just how good it is. I even fall into that trap on a year-to-year basis. I'm like, yeah, let's go to the nations. And then I get there and I'm like, oh yeah, the nations is this good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually, my initial thought was yes, but actually the more I think about it, no.
Well, like even talking about the rider's perspective, because you have a little bit more, I think, knowledge basis of how the European riders feel about it, more so than the Americans, who are obviously sometimes indifferent. Some really want to go, some don't care. But for Europeans, sometimes the nations is a really kind of the only way for them to experience a big win or a championship glory of some sense. Like, for example, Max Anstey winning at Matterley Basin was massive for him and his career, because he hasn't won a GP title or an indoor title yet or anything like that. Roman Fevre's won the nations 5 times now, and he's a world champion. But on top of that, like, he's added more accolades to his career. So do the Europeans over there, like, do they look at the nations as like, okay, this is like a piece I have to hang on my mantle at some point?
No, I don't think so any more than American riders, but I do believe this, and I've only just thought of this for the first time in my life. With a European rider, the options for each country are so limited that for a Federer or a Anstey or a Hurlings, Caroli, etc., it's not a question of they will be picked for the nations. So it's subconsciously worked into their schedule because they don't even have to wait and see the results. As long as they're not injured, they're like, I've got to go and do the nations. That's part of my year. Whereas I feel like in America, and they know that if they skipped it, they are screwing their country, and it would drop their country from second to maybe 12th. I mean, look at it this year. France are not in good shape because Renault is injured, and that's kind of going to ruin France's hopes of retaining the crown. So I think that subconsciously it is just part of their schedule and part of their work. Whereas I feel for an American rider, there are so many options that they're like, well, I can skip it and America will be fine. Because I'm not even a guaranteed pick anyway. Like,
yeah.
For instance, if you're Hayden, you could go, well, I'll skip it. Chance will be fine. Or Kitchen will be fine. Whereas if you're a European rider, you're like, if I skip it, they're going to go and have to get rider who is 45 seconds a lap slower than me. That's not good. And I can't really do that because I can't justify it. Get me?
I get what you're saying. We're past time, but just on that sentiment, I feel like the powerhouse nations, that's not true. Maybe about France this year specifically, but in the past, France has had injuries and call on Christophe Charlier and still win. And then like this year, for example, Glenn Coldenhoff's been the Netherlands guy for a decade, and he's probably not going to be on the team this year, and they're still fine. So I think the powerhouse nations, it's kind of that situation that the Americans experience anyway.
Yeah, but you said injuries and the Charlier situation. Yes, that's true. But if Federer had said, I'm not going, and then they picked the Enduro guy, that would have been a lot more outrageous. But in the end, it was just an underdog story of so-and-so's not ready, whoever it was that was injured that year, we've got to go for the Enduro guy, and oh my God, what an underdog story, we pulled it off. Whereas I feel like if you're, I don't know who the rider would have been that was injured that year. I think there was a few...
Didn't France win the year that Vial couldn't go because of the hat debacle? Didn't they still win?
Yeah, no, that was 2019. That was the end of France's streak.
Oh, okay. But anyway, I'm saying like there's issues like this, and then like I said this year, the Netherlands, Glenn Coldenhoff is not hurt. He's just not having a good season. He's probably not going to be picked by the Netherlands, and they probably still have a good shot at winning. So
yeah, but you're arguing a specific point, and yes, the Netherlands has entered this territory of being deep and with many options. Still, Belgium have got the Koenens, Everts, Gertz. Okay, now Sasha is reasonably okay, but take Gertz out, it's not as good. Take, for instance, Great Britain, home nation this year. Watson, Anstey, Muse, whoever, was a good team. Watson's hurt. It's kind of out now. There's like almost
Gilbert.
no chance to be reasonably well. So,
but Gilbert will be fine. Like, there's other options. I'm saying.
No, but yeah, there are other options, but it drastically impacts the level of the team. Whereas swap out Deegan for Kitchen. Okay, maybe Deegan's going to be a bit better, but it's really not going to change the outlook for the team. Swap out Plessinger for Jacob. It's really not going to change the outlook of the team. Like you get what I'm saying? Okay, in this instance, Chase is the number one rider in America by far right now. Fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if Chase were to back out, it would be more outrageous than Jacob to back out.
Yeah. No, I get
Chase is more in the realm of what the European riders are.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Explaining my point.
No, I get where you're coming from. I'm just saying, like, yes, you're right about the USA having a multitude of more options, but I do still feel that you lose the top US rider, and it does hurt them. Deegan not going last year. Deegan not going last year, and them having to call Christian Craig off the couch hurt the USA.
This is revisionist history because that was not the case. It did not go Deegan pulled out, we've got to call Christian Craig. It was 20 riders pulled out.
Yes, I get that. I'm just saying, but like that's one example of the top guy doesn't go and suddenly the USA is 6th place overall. So,
but for a European nation, it would be Deegan has pulled out, now we've got to get Christian Craig. It would be more that gulf of difference.
Bottom line, we both want tradition to stay the same and the nations to remain every single year. Period. Yes.
Very exciting. We are now in nations territory. I'd imagine there will be a lot more nations topics here, a lot more buzz about it. We are now in the nations time. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah, I feel like from like 2 or 3 weeks from now onward, every show is going to have us reviewing or previewing a team and how they're going to do it. The Nations.
I've made a conscious decision that from Southwick, like I'm going to be asking riders about the Nations and like, hey, Jet Hunter, will you drop down to a 250? Chase, would you drop down to a 250 in some random circumstance where that's, like I'm gearing up. I'm ready mentally now to jump into this.
Well, speaking of Nations, we have a rider that we're going to talk about in a future topic here in just a minute that will probably have something to do with the Nations. But let's get into our first non-moto topic of the day here, brought to you by Racetech Suspension. Racetech Gold Valves provide a plush feel with drastically improved bottoming resistance and increased traction. All Racetech products are 100% guaranteed and made in the USA. All right, first topic of the day, and this is going to just kind of be fun, so we're just going to ask it and run with it. Lewis, if you woke up one morning and all your problems were solved, and I'm assuming by problems, this is more than just like, what you're going to eat for breakfast. It's literally like you got all the money in the world, your mental stability is great and all that stuff. How would you go about your day?
Well, I would wake up. I think you'd be bored. But actually, no, you wouldn't be, because this would be day one. So this is all very exciting and new. Day 1,000, you would probably be bored. Day one, you're like, this is incredible.
Is this
day one?
I was just going to ask, do you know, like, the night before that all your problems are solved, or do you just wake up one day and someone tells you, like, hey, you don't have to worry about anything from this point onward, and then you have to think about what you want to do?
No, the way the question is phrased is if you woke up one morning. So the one morning part makes it sound random.
Right,
I think.
Okay. Continue.
So yeah, I guess you'd be stoked and excited and thrilled and all of that good stuff. But I do believe eventually you would be bored, which brings me to a quote, Kellen. And we haven't had therapy with Lewis in a long time, but here we go, buckle up. And I've kind of been thinking about this a lot lately because it really is true. I would rather be burnt out than bored.
Okay.
Agreed?
Like you would rather have done enough that you're tired, basically, with life?
I would rather have too much to do than too little to do.
Got it. Okay. That's a better way of putting it.
Do you agree with this?
I think I could go 50-50 because I feel like I feel both. I feel like I have times in my life where there's not racing for a while, there's nothing really going on, so you're kind of like, I want something to do. But then I feel like there's times where I'm like, there's literally no time to do anything else. I really wish like I could just have one day that's a break. So I think I would not care either way.
You're talking about, yes, for one day, you would obviously rather be bored, but I'm talking about life.
Yeah, but I just think if you have... So to answer this from my perspective, I think I would just like everything I've ever wanted to do, I just go do it. Like I just would keep exploring and traveling and checking out new places and trying new foods. And like if I had nothing else to worry about, including money, yeah, I would just go do a bunch of stuff.
True.
So then you wouldn't be bored because you just have...
Well, I'm just thinking from the work... I guess I'm kind of eliminating the money factor for some reason.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of it as I'm thinking of it as I'm living my normal life, but with less problems, but still same money, same situation. And
okay,
in that case,
what's like? So tell me what problem you're thinking of being solved? Because to me right now, I
think you'd just be happier, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I guess, but like the biggest problem I have probably right now is financially, right? So then if that's solved, that's a huge weight lifted. But if you're saying like a mundane problem, like I'm not tired anymore as a problem or something like that, is that what you mean?
I don't know. I guess I look at it as, okay, here's your financial stability, not here's $1 billion.
Yeah, okay.
So
you don't have to worry about...
Here's an extra $1,000 or whatever you need in your situation. So not enough to like, oh, brilliant, let me go and shop for a Lambo.
Okay.
Like, I'm still looking at it from like a real life perspective, you know?
Right.
My life, not life changing, but just enough to steady the waves a little bit.
Yep.
So in that case, I would imagine that it would actually be quite good, because then it's just minor problems solved, which means you're generally happier day to day going about your business. But back to my other quote about rather being burnt out than bored, if there would be a situation where you have less reason to charge in your job or drive or all of that stuff, then I would rather the opposite and like have a goal to chase, a carrot dangling, and which leads to burnout than to being bored. Because I actually have come to the realization that I think burnout is almost, and this is deep, we're therapy with Lewis.
Yeah.
I think the burnout is actually something you can come the other side of. I think that burnout is perceived as something you hit and then you need to take a step back. I actually think the burnout in some cases is good and you can keep charging and come out the other side being fine.
Okay, yeah. I guess, but to your topic about having a goal and something that you want to do that gives you drive in your life, if you don't have any other problems, couldn't you just set all the goals that you kind of like always really wanted to do, but maybe didn't have the time to do, and now that all your problems are solved, you do? Like, for example, I don't know if you care, but like maybe you want to have like a fitness goal for yourself. And if all your other problems are solved and you have the time to do it, then you can dedicate time to it, and that's a goal you can strive for, right?
Yeah, but I'm looking at purely work, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know how motivated I would be if I don't have a real reason to be motivated. If you get me?
I guess, but I mean, like I said, if you like, I can't tell me something in your own mind, maybe that has nothing to do with work, that is something that you've wanted to do. Like you wanted to get a house. Maybe you wanted to, I don't know, become like a real estate person and start renting homes. I don't know, something like that you can strive for.
If I convey this into being a rider, I would be the type of rider who sits on the start and tells myself, everyone doubted you. Let's show everyone. No one believes in you. Let's show everyone. Fuck everyone. This is it. That would be the way that my mind like works to like get myself going. Is my point to the motivation, needing the motivation. I wouldn't be a rider, which would be more like Jet, I think, which would just be like, let's go racing.
Okay. So what you're saying is that you like having not turmoil, but something that creates a clear path or clear goal in front of you that you want to like accomplish or knock down so that it motivates you to do so.
Put it this way. Yes, that, but also put it this way. If I'm having a so-so day, like, you know, just a run-of-the-mill day,
yeah,
and then someone texts me saying, I thought you would have done better with this, I'm off. Like, I'm gone. I rise from level 1 to 1,000 immediately. My brain like clicks into gear, and I'm like, no. Let's go.
Okay. To end up this topic then real quick, because we're almost done with time, I want to pitch it to the fans this week because we've been asking fans to send us topics, but I'm curious to know what fans think about this. So if you're in a situation where you wake up and all your problems are solved, would you relax, watch a bunch of TV, just like totally zone out and chill, and just that becomes like your norm in your life? Or would you be like my dear friend Lewis here and find goals to strive for that are maybe have nothing to do with your work or your job or something like that? But would you become goal centric or would you become experience centric, I guess would be the other way of putting it.
Just to be clear, if I did have all the money in the world, then I would just start a business and that would be the goal. But I would obviously be playing in a different level. Or
if you had all the money in the world,
with $1 million business, and I'm really like,
if you had all the money in the world, would you start a business that has to do with motocross journalism, or is there a bigger aspiration?
I would start a business with motocross journalism as a side hustle. Or would you? It certainly wouldn't be. I would do like real estate or something like that, or investing or something like that. But I think I would still maintain some sort of motocross journalism activity.
Because you're passionate about the journalism, you're not really passionate about the real estate side. But one makes you money and one gives you purpose.
Best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds.
Right. There's a great singer once sung.
All right, halfway through our show, big shout out to EVS Sports. Experience the pinnacle of knee protection and injury prevention with the EVS Web Eclipse knee brace. For over 39 years, EVS has relentlessly honed their engineering expertise, consistently delivering award-winning knee braces. This legacy of excellence is embedded in every facet of the new Web Eclipse, which represents the culmination of their tireless dedication to innovation and rider safety. Use code LVK30 to save 30% off today. All right, let's get into our next topic, our next moto topic as well. Yeah, pretty much over the weekend, we kind of heard that this was already happening. I think you were maybe the first person that clued me into it. But anyway, current Australian Motocross Championship points leader in the MX1 division, I think it's called down there, Kyle Webster is coming to the USA for the next couple of weeks. He's going to be racing Southwick and Redbud. With who's helping him? Is it Uribe that's going to help him here too?
He's Firepower Honda.
Okay, so he's Firepower Honda here. First
He is
off,
the equivalent in Australia as well, of course.
right? Yes, yeah, he's on that team down there as well. So first off, Lewis, how does he do? What are you expecting out of Kyle Webster?
Top 8 minimum, I believe closer to top 5. He's a great rider, severely underrated, very much a Dylan Wright equivalent of it's a travesty that he has never got out of Australia and really had a good opportunity to race internationally with factory equipment because, okay, in Kyle Webster's case, GPs would probably be the path because I believe he's more of an outdoor guy. But
Yep.
still, put him in GPs on a HRC bike, I believe he would be great. I almost would go as far as to say he would be the equivalent or very close to Ruben Fernandez.
Can I ask you just real quick? This is, I think, his second or third year racing the MX1 class in Australia. So he graduated MX2 a little while ago. Remember there for a bit in GPs, it was like the success of the Lawrence brothers, like kind of invigorated the Australian flow again. Like we had Bailey Malkovich, we had Nathan Crawford over there. Like, did he like miss the boat almost? Like, was there an opportunity that you ever heard of like, oh, we should go get Kyle Webster too, that he didn't take?
From memory, age was a problem because he was around that aging out moment.
Okay.
So then when you're vying for a full-time 450 ride, it's much more difficult. I definitely remember that being a factor. He did have a fill-in ride with Jackie Martin's Honda, but he was really impressive. But again, his results were really impressive, I personally believed. But again, he was vying for a 450 ride. And in that case, we already had too many GP riders going for a certain amount of seats without adding an Australian in, who's then got to relocate and all of that stressful stuff. So I believe it was an age issue. I believe if he could have come and gone MX2, then that would have happened no problem. But he missed the boat on the MX2 part, yes.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Thanks for the refreshment on that. So yes, he is going to race Southwick and Redbud. He's currently leading the Australian points by 7 points over our old friend Jed Beaton, who's over there on a Yamaha now. So Webster coming over to the USA, like, what do you think the main reason or root cause of this is? Because sometimes GP guys come over and race in the USA, and it's quite literally just like, wanted to do it once in my life, little holiday thing. Do you believe that there's any sort of like push behind this from Webster himself to be like, I need to get on kind of the stage in front of these people again to show my worth and my talent because maybe I want to go over there or I want to go to GPs?
No.
No, he just wants to come do it for fun.
It's an opportunity because Yariv has a team in America and Australia, so it's really quite simple. You just need a flight. And yeah, there's a break in the Australian schedule. We saw Jed Beaton do it last year when he was on the same team.
Yep.
So it's basically made very easy by Yariv's situation, so why not take advantage? I do believe there is a little bit of nations prep.
Okay.
Or nations pitching involved.
But so you don't believe that, not necessarily about his own intentions, but say he does come over here, does show well at either of the rounds that he does, maybe a top 5 performance in a moto, for example, that doesn't maybe even click into gear in his own mind, oh, maybe I could do it on this stage, I could do it on the world stage, and then teams over here would maybe start asking questions as well.
No, because I believe that no team would offer him money comparable to what he gets in Australia, especially to make the move. Again, it's similar to the Dylan Wright situation, very similar, almost identical, both Honda riders. Yeah, I just don't believe that there's a situation that would make him want to take the leap. But make no mistake about it, he's a really good rider. Yeah. Really, really good rider. I 100% guarantee he will surprise this weekend. If he's outside of the top 10, I would be shocked.
No, I agree with you. I think he is in that range, like you said. I could see his upside being 4th or 5th, maybe in a moto. Definitely around the 7 to 8 range, most likely. We kind of saw Beaton do the same thing at Washougal. Like he was hovering around the top 10. So
Beaton was around there, and Beaton was really unhappy last year. Like just not comfortable. I would say that Beaton's bike situation was worse at Washougal than what Webster will have. So Beaton was there, and Webster should technically be in a better situation. Put it this way. Webster is riding better now than Beaton was at this point last year. And Beaton was, from memory, I want to say he went 8 DNF?
Yeah, it was top 10-ish, maybe 10 DNF sounds right.
I think if I'm right, I think he was running like 7th and then faded late, maybe?
Yeah, sounds right. I definitely
Yeah.
remember him being in the top 10 for most of that moto for sure. Okay, so we have about a minute and a half to talk about this. It brings into discussion, as you mentioned, the prep for potentially going to Nations if you're Webster. Obviously, the Lawrence brothers are going to be Australia's number 1 and number 2 picks. Like, you would be stupid not to have them on the team. But Kyle Webster and Jed Beaton, who's right behind him in points, are 450 riders. And I've said this to a couple people. I don't necessarily look at the talent pool in the Australian MX2 class as guys that you should pick from. So what happens? Does Kyle Webster ride a 250? Should you put one of the Lawrence brothers back on a 250? Should they pick Webster? Should they go with Beaton? Like, what's your mindset on Australia at this point?
What is going to happen, may or may not have some inside info, is Webster will be on a 250 with the others in 450s.
Okay.
What should happen is either Hunter or Jet on a 250, or because Webster on a 450 and one of the brothers on a 250, that is almost an unstoppable team in my mind. Because Webster will run top 5 in a moto. 100%.
I agree.
So, in my mind, and I don't know whether, again, as far as I know, the Lawrences will be on the 450s, case closed. But that's not the best move for Australia, just purely because because Webster will be better on a 450 than he will be a 250. So as a team dynamic, that would be an almost unstoppable team. But if it is Jet, Webster, Hunter, that would slightly decrease their chances.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and I forget who I was talking to, maybe Jeff at Alpine Stars, but I was saying that the exact same thing. You should put one of the Lawrence brothers on a 250 because, as we have talked about over the years with Nations, your MX2 rider, more often than not, is the person that wins you the overall. Because if they go, like Vial, what did he do? He went 1-4 at Nations last year or something like that. That helped France win. France was probably going to win anyway, but it definitely helped them because Vial put 6-7 spots between him and the next MX2 rider, which you're never going to have happen on a 450. If you're Jet Lawrence and you win, France will probably finish second right behind you, or USA or whatever it is, whoever the nation you're battling. And if you're Hunter Lawrence on a 450 and open, you might win, but France or USA will finish right behind you in second or third. You need to have multiple positions between you and them to separate that gap, because like you said, you put Webster on a 250, he gets 6th in the 250 class and finishes 9 spots behind the winning MX2 rider. That changes the entire overall. So I 100% agree with you. I would probably put Hunter on a 250.
Yeah, well, I would put Jet on a 250, but same difference. Say in my case, Jet's on a 250. Hunter would probably win his class, or at least be in contention for that. Same with Jet in MX2, and then Webster would be 3rd or 4th in his class. And At that point, how do you beat that scorecard? You have to be near perfect to beat that. So, I'm going to do some digging this weekend and see if the Lawrences have spoken about 250s, whether they would be open to it. Again, my inside line tells me highly unlikely, almost door shut, but yeah, I'll dig.
Yeah, I don't think either of them want to go back to eating roost at that race. I think both of them they enjoy the idea of winning motos, trying to propel Australia.
The final moto.
Exactly, that kind of thing. So I think they'll both want to stay on 450s, and you can't change their mind otherwise. But I agree. I would put one of them on a 250. All right, let's get into our final moto topic of the day. And this one is definitely going to be interesting to discuss because, as we talked about last week, I think it was with the Masterpool situation, there's a rotating musical chairs going on with the last PC seats. Faulkner might get it. Masterpool obviously has his name in the hat. And then there's the odd case of Max Vohland, who won his first heat race of the year. I think Mitch really likes him. I think he wants, to have him stay there, but there might not be even a seat available for Max Vohland. And Vohland has been, kind of MIA since his dislocated hip back in January, had some complications with it, and will not be back for nationals, won't be back this year. So it's been a little bit weird because we haven't heard much from him, and he's probably one of the key names in silly season right now. So we just wanted to talk about him today and kind of discuss whether it's, the right approach from him or whatnot to remain kind of radio silent in this whole process as well.
I get it. When I've had issues recently, I've gone radio silent and done that. I understand. But in his situation of being a professional athlete, whether that's what he no matter whether that's what he wants to do or not. Clearly, it is what he wants to do. I think that someone, a manager, a parent, a publicist, which doesn't exist but should be like, yeah, no, like we've got to get you out there. We've got to. People are forgetting you exist. We've really got to get you some exposure because as of right now, you're irrelevant, which he is, by his own doing. Because he could be on Pulp, this show, every website. He could be running his own little PR firm. He could be doing a monthly newsletter, like, hanging out with Maximus. Hey guys, it's another month has been and gone. Here's an update from my side. And we would all eat that up as websites. So he could be doing a lot to really drum up interest and exposure in himself. Again, I get it because I believe as humans, we are programmed to kind of armadillo in bad situations. But someone needs to be advising him and pointing him in the right direction because it has certainly done him no good being this quiet. If you're a prospective team looking at him and you're like, what about Maximus? Your initial reaction would be, yeah, I don't know how that's going. Like, he's not been around. It can't be going well. And maybe you just write him off at that moment instead of reaching out because essentially you have to do the legwork to find out if he's a good signing because there's no information out there.
Yeah.
So all around, it would be helpful for him to talk.
Yeah. So, like I said, I know him a little bit personally, so I'm maybe probably too close to the situation anyway, but it has been tough for him. There was more complications to do with the dislocated hip than they expected. And if, when he comes out and finally tells the whole story, I think people will be surprised. Some of the things that he went through, and it's been really tough for him, I know mentally as well. And he's been trying to deal with that. So I think from his perspective of what he's dealing with, he just doesn't feel as if there's anything to talk about. Which, as you say, he should. I get it, but I think he also feels that way. That is human
nature, I think.
Right.
Oh, I've got nothing to say.
Exactly. So he's keeping silent, kind of letting his past results speak for themselves a little bit. But he is getting back into being in good spirits again, which is cool and stuff like that. And I hope the best for him moving forward. Let me ask you this real quick, Lewis. Knowing what Max Vohland is, what he brings to the table, the talent that he possesses, do you feel that he has done enough? Because there's a lot of people online that don't, but do you feel he's done enough to deserve continuing on a factory team?
There are two answers to that question. Yes, but not. Yes, but not certainly. If he's on a factory team, that's not unbelievable, but by no means is it a given and you have to give him a spot. He would be lucky to get on a factory team. And it wouldn't be surprising to see him there, but equally, it's also the same goes for ending up on a satellite team like Club.
Yeah, because like I said, at least on social media, the response thus far has been like, "What has he done? He's won a heat race and led 15 minutes of a moto in his first ever national. What else has he done?" Because true, he hasn't podiumed, which is a big thing in the 250 class. Like if you haven't even podiumed, like you're probably not making the most of your situation. I get that. However, on the flip side of it, do you not feel like he's already done a lot with the speed that he has, the injuries he's already had in his career because he had a massive injury when he was a rookie, dealt with that, carried KTM on his back until Vial came because they didn't have a 250 effort. He was the only guy. All of those pressures and whatnot, turning pro for the first time. I don't know. I think you can look at it two ways. Has he maybe not delivered everything? No. But has he also underperformed? Probably not either. He's been a good, solid top 5 guy almost his whole career.
Yeah, and again, to your point, but if you're not winning on the track, make yourself win off of it. And in this year, it has been impossible for him to win on the track. So that's where you've got to up your activity off of it to ensure that you stay relevant in that side, because the track stuff is not in your control right now.
Yeah.
Off track is. So make the most of it. When life gives you lemon, make lemonade.
So just thinking about this year before he got hurt, which was before San Diego, the 3rd round, he got 4th in the main event at Anaheim 1, won his heat race like we talked about. He ran 3rd forever in the main at A1, and then Kitchen passed him late. And then was, I believe, in 2nd place in the mud at San Francisco when his bike locked up. So if you somehow say he gets to the flag in that race and finishes 2nd, he's 4-2 in the first 2 rounds. Borderline would have been leading the points. I mean, Jordan went 2-1 or what? 3-1. So I don't remember, but either way, Jordan was leading the points after the second round. If Volland goes into the third round before getting hurt and he's second in points, does that change the perspective anyone has on him? Because the DNF kind of looms as like people don't really remember as a mechanical thing.
No, because it was so long ago that like I barely remember him. I didn't remember him winning a heat until someone said that this week.
Yeah, I won the first heat of the year.
But again, if he's making himself known and relevant, we would be like, okay, we're talking to Maximus this week. Let's just refresh minds on what he did. Oh, he won a heat. Oh, hey, you won a heat. You know, that's in his control again to make people remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I get it. I get both sides of the coin. I get not having updates, not really wanting to talk about the situation. And I get, like you're saying, that you need to be a little bit more outspoken, a little bit more personal. But this isn't the first time we've seen this. Like this has happened with many riders, and probably the most notable one is the fact that every time Eli Tomac gets hurt, we don't hear from him until he's basically back on the bike again. So
in Eli Tomac's situation, you're so
fast
good
enough.
On the bike,
exactly, I get it.
it's irrelevant. Maximus is not in that situation. Eli does not need to put in any legwork anywhere but the track because his results do the talking. There are very few riders who are in that very special situation.
Yeah, so he's like two in between, kind of, that he's not fast enough, but he should be about, a little bit more personable. Like you say, like there's a lot of value to riders these days being forthcoming in front of people on social media and such. For example, I think a good example of this is Dean Wilson. Everybody loves Dino. Everyone wants Dino to stick around. If someone can give Dean a bike, they would love to, because he's a good guy and he's very open on social media, very personable, all that kind of stuff. But he's not winning races, and he's scratching the top 10 here and there, but he's Dean Wilson.
Yeah, but you're setting the bar too high because Maximus will never be Dean Wilson. But he can do more, and Dean Wilson is done in a very jokey way. Haha. Maximus doesn't need to do that. He just needs to put himself out there and like, hey, I want to share my story. If you guys want an interview, I'm available. Right. Yeah, I'll do that podcast. Etc., etc., etc. Hey, I've just had another surgery. Just want to let you guys know if you want to report on it. That sort of stuff. He doesn't need to be Dean Wilson. Truthfully, he can't be Dean Wilson. He's not got that personality. Very few people do. But he can certainly do more with the skill set and the toolbox that he has in closing.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on from this topic and get into our last non-moto topic of the day. Again, just kind of a fun little open-ended one. So we'll pitch it to you first, Lewis. Where do you feel the most centered and happy?
Deep.
Deep.
Nowhere. But most recently, when I went to Italy for the MXGP.
So you like being in the paddock of a race is where you feel the most yourself?
Going back there and being kind of reminded of what I achieved and what I did, and it just was kind of like, okay, it was just a reminder. It was a reminder of what I've done and that I'm not as bad at this as the YouTube comments say.
So for you, it's not necessarily a location; it's the place plus the people that are around you that make it one holistic.
Because I'm not saying that's all the time. I'm saying I know. I said nowhere.
I understand that.
The most recent time when I can think of this was then. So
I'm just saying,
put me in a GP every week, and that would be the situation. Not at all.
I get that. All I'm saying, Lewis, is
that that's the case.
You didn't just walk into the GP pits, and you weren't like, "I'm happy. Like this is great. Look at all these people." It was the people.
I did.
Like you didn't even talk to anybody yet, and you were suddenly.
I just was like, it was like going to an old home or an old school, or it was like, it just was like homely. It was like slipping on an old pair of shoes.
Yeah. For me, the answer is so far in my life, anytime I've been on a vacation with my wife, daughter, family in general, because it's really kind of truly the only time in my life that I stop thinking. Otherwise, I'm wide open. I'm thinking of new ideas, thinking of this, thinking of that. And when I go on vacation with them, like I just wake up and I'm like, what are we going to have for breakfast? Are we going to go on this hike today? that kind of thing, where I'm not waking up thinking like, oh, what breaking news is happening? What's this or whatever? So like, it's what brings my mind the most peace because I'm disconnected from everything. And most of the time it happens when we either go camping or up in the mountains somewhere. So I literally can't even see anything. Like there's not even internet connection sometimes. That's where I feel the most sound, the most relaxed, I would say probably the happiest.
Yeah, I was going to say sound and relaxed are very different to centered and happy, but you hit up happy at the end, so it made sense.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that is my answer. For recently, I don't have a categoric put me in this situation always, and it will work. I don't, but I do have recent examples of when I felt that way. My hope is to get to that position with the American paddock. That's kind of what I'm striving for, but that's going to take a lot of time, of course. Yeah, that's me. That's a nice short topic, I'd say.
Well, can I ask a question about you then? Like you said, that's a recent example. Have you had a time ever in your life where you were able to, for a brief moment, stop and be like, damn, that was cool that I'm here, or whatever? Like this, well, yeah, I'm happy that I'm there.
Nations and stuff, and like
right.
The situation we discussed in recent weeks with like special rides, Chase at Hangtown, like being there and seeing that, it was like, wow, it's cool, I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, so, but do you classify that as like, I'm centered and happy because I'm at a race, I love this sport, I love being here, I just saw the coolest thing maybe I've ever seen, damn, this is awesome.
Sure, but for a brief moment, because then the rest, the stress and the job and the requirements and the boxes to tick take over. But I look at this question as more of a like sustained period.
Okay.
A complete day, a complete week, a complete couple of days.
So
not a fleeting moment.
Perhaps an evening
interpretation, of course.
Perhaps an evening in Nashville can make you centered and happy.
I don't remember that.
It's no memory.
I believe reports tell me I was quite happy.
It sounds like you're pretty happy that night.
I have no memory, so all we have is unreliable sources to go off of.
Yeah, but just being around you a little bit more this year, like there's definitely, if it seems like there's times where you have prolonged periods of like just being with fun groups of people. You're not even really working, like you're just chilling, hanging out, chatting. Like, would you say that's more on your centric and happy side versus being in the moment at a race?
No, yeah, I'm a big let me laugh and let me be myself.
Okay.
That's for instance, I don't think we should say it, but in Philly, the joke that me, you, and Steve had in the press box for around 15 minutes was very unfiltered and probably shouldn't be spoken about. I mean,
no, don't talk about it.
Okay, I was going to say I'll say it if you think we should.
No,
but it was like comfortable enough where I knew that I could make a joke around you both where you wouldn't judge me, although I think Steve walked off because he did in fact judge me. And yeah, like that's good. Those situations are good. But the press, I was going to say originally the press box, but then I thought, well, no, because the press box does come with some stressful moments when you're trying to figure stuff out. But there are moments in the press box where the three of us do have maximum laughs, and it's like almost like we're in a bubble, which in a sense.
No, I you're right. I mean, the press box for sure is, gosh, it's a ton of fun.
I didn't say that because, to my previous point, there are moments, and I didn't take this as a fleeting moment. I took it as a sustained multiple days in a row.
So it has to be like prolonged periods of time, like you said.
Well,
the GP.
Have to be. It's down to interpretation.
But for you, that's what I'm saying. The GP is a holistic weekend that was fun, enjoyable. You met a lot of people, a lot of laughs, wash bays, all that kind of stuff. I agree.
Honestly, to the laugh point, like I walked up to someone in Italy, and their reply before, like, first time I've seen this person all year, obviously. I walked up to someone, and they went, "Fucking hell! I can't believe they let you in. They let anyone in nowadays. What the fuck are you doing here?" And that made me happy because that's my sense of humor and my way of like talking to people. Like that, even that made me happy. I was like, oh, we can joke. And then a lot of questionable jokes followed, which can't be it.
So I think the gist of it for you is being around a good group of
this is all me though. I don't like this.
Okay, but I'm just saying the gist of it for you is being around a good group of people that you can relax, have laughs with, good jokes, good banter, but also there's probably other quality stuff going on around. And I feel the exact same way because, like I said, when I go on these weekend trips with my family, I can zone out of work life basically and just be able to be there and experience my daughter having fun doing something for the first time and having nice meals and playing games and stuff like that. It's a way of being with people to zone out. So I think both of us feel the same way. When you're with the right group of people and you have the right chemistry, laughter, that kind of stuff, that's probably when we're the most centered and happy. Yes?
Yes, fair.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. So that's that topic. Fun little non-moto topic here at the end, and overall good topics for not a race weekend. Kind of weird not having a national and a GP on the same weekend. It felt so mundane.
Yep, but this was a much better show than last week. I'm much happier with this show than I was last week.
Oh well, I'm sorry that you hated the show last week so much.
I really hated the show last week. I don't know why. Really hated it.
Oh man.
I don't know why.
Anyway,
I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was. I can't even quantify it.
Yeah.
But I did genuinely felt that last week's podcast was the worst one we've done.
Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to Southwick this weekend. You are. I hope you enjoy the sands of Southwick. It's probably going to be a little bit warm there this weekend, but you finally get to compare it to Lommel and Lierop and Valkenswaard and see if it's sandy or not, and maybe we'll talk about that next week.
Yep. Watch this space.
Watch the space. All right, thanks guys for tuning in to another EVS Sports LVK More Than Moto show. Big shout out to EVS Sports, Namura, and Racetech for the support as always. We'll be back next week to review some topics from Southwick and preview some upcoming stuff in the second half of Nationals. But thanks guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.